someone comes along and you just know they have it in them to be sober.
I used to smile and I used to dream.
I think this is his last shot.
I had high hopes about the man that I could be.
No word from your dad?
Kind of solo these days. Hey, Dad, do you remember Hillary? Hi.
Yeah, we're late, darling.
We're just chatting about Christmas.
Unfortunately, our table's full.
I rode my luck and my luck ran out. I want to be clean. I want to live a life.
You can't do it on your own.
Second time around. Hello? The second time around. Hey, boy. Excuse me, do you know whose cat this is?
Bob came to you for a reason.
Bob?
That's what he wants you to call him.
In the past, I've screwed up every opportunity I've been given. I don't want to go that way. Who are the
You're doing great. James, you can't take on too much too far.
I'm ready. I've got Bob. Standing by your side. He'll look after me. 'Cause all
You're keeping him, aren't you?
Give it a try, help Bob and I. Bob, show me what life could be like on the other side. You want to come again tomorrow? Satellite moments. I wanted to apologize for everything.
I'm the one who needs to apologize.
Satellite moments. Everyone gets a second chance. Luckily for me, I had a very important companion to help with my second chance. Don't look at me like that. High five.
Ladies and gentlemen, come on, we got Luke right here. This is amazing, right? Hey, Luke.
Hey.
Congratulations on the film. It's fantastic. Thanks so much for being here. How are you doing? This is a busy time for you right now, right? Going around promoting the film. Where are we in the cycle? Just beginning, middle?
So we opened in London a couple
Yep.
of weeks ago, and this is the next stop. So yeah, this is still
So you're
fresh.
like dead. You're right there. A lot of
Yeah.
tweeting, a lot of places to be.
Yeah, no, it had a really good premiere in London, a really good reaction there. So yeah, hopefully people will come along and see it here in New York, and I think it's in 20 other cities across the US.
Wow.
So.
It's amazing. Well, if there's one thing the internet has proven, it is that people here love cats. So I think you got that going in your favor.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be all right. But I got a chance to see the film. It's fantastic. We'll start with the easy one. How'd you get involved? How'd you come to the project?
I got sent the script, and I loved it. I thought it was an amazing story. My only concern was that it was such an amazingly positive ending that I wondered if it had been doctored a bit to try and make it this really beautiful, uplifting story. But I looked on the internet and saw all these clips of James and Bob and read the book and realized that it did really happen, and this incredible change of fortunes happened to James and to Bob, really. So yeah, I was just in straight away.
Well, yeah, for sure. And that's actually, it's funny that you bring that up, that it has like this incredibly, almost too good to be true ending. But the story also, it's a very real story. It goes a lot of different places. Yeah. We'll talk at great length about the fun cat stuff in a second. But I do want to talk a little bit about, pardon me, and commend you for an amazing performance in your portrayal of a person with struggling with addiction. Yeah. And I thought that was fantastic because of the way it was sort of balanced with this uplifting movie. It's a really sweet and funny movie, but it doesn't shy away from the realities of this. How did you approach that part of James? How did you prepare for that? What was your guiding voice in making those decisions?
Well, I think you're right. It does. It starts following a man who's living homeless on the streets of London and is trying to keep off heroin, to keep on the methadone program, and really struggling for food and for anywhere to live. And so at the beginning, we had to make sure we were getting that bit right before we worried about whether the lovely moments with Bob were going to work. Yeah. And to that end, I went to a couple of different drug rehabilitation centers and spoke to doctors and patients there, and devoured the internet for research and just wanted to try and build up my understanding of it, really, because this is something that affects so many people, addiction and homelessness, and not just the people, but their families as well. And so I just wanted to try and understand it as best I could. Yeah, spoke to James a lot. I went busking in London. I slept on the streets. I just tried to sort of understand it. And obviously, one night for me, who knew I had a flat to go back to afterwards, right. I'm never going to understand it totally, but I thought I'd get a little sort of insight into it.
How long were you busking for during your experience? Was it just one night, or did you do a couple of times?
I went out. I did it a lot during the filming.
course.
Whenever we weren't shooting, I'd be just on the corner of the street with my sleeping bag out, busking. Yeah.
What were some of your go-to songs while you're out there playing?
All of the original songs.
All the original.
Yeah.
Of course. Why not?
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I needed to be practicing them at the time, so I was just playing them really.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, it's cool. Like I was saying, one of the things I love is that it sort of humanizes this crisis that people all over the world are sort of facing right now, and puts a human face on it. I think a lot of people don't have that perspective on it, and sort of look at it like, oh, that's not my decision. That's your problem. You did that. There's a point in the film, I think, when Val is trying to secure housing for James, and she describes him as an addict who wants to get better. And I was wondering, in your research, do you think that's a legitimate delineation? Are there some that want to get better? Are there some that don't? Or is it just some are in maybe a little deeper than others?
I think there's a few things to that. I mean, I think there's no addict that wants to be an addict. You know, no one is addicted to heroin and having a good time. No one is even getting high on it anymore. If it's got to that stage, you know, you're taking it just to try and feel normal, to try and get through the day, and it's not a fun place to be at all. And so, you know, there's a lot that needs to be done for people in that situation, but at the heart of it, they have to also, I think, want to help themselves. Otherwise, I don't know if anyone can help them. But yeah, it's certainly true that no one wants to be in that situation. And as you said, it's very easy to sort of see someone on the streets living in a sleeping bag, and you just sort of see the sleeping bag, or you see a drunk, or you see a homeless guy. And actually, what I think this film does really well, and by James telling his story so honestly, it really shows you, you know, a human being in that situation, and makes you realize how close any of us could be. You know, when I was making it, I would speak to people who were on the streets, and I remember one guy who was telling me 3 months before he'd been living at home with his family, and suddenly found himself, you know, without a job and living on the streets, and it's very quick to get there.
Yeah.
But also what this film shows, I think, is that with help and with things like The Big Issue, the newspaper that James sells on the streets, and with help and support, then there can be light at the end of the tunnel, to use a cliche.
And also, well, yeah, for sure. And the support can come in many different shapes and forms. In this instance, it happens to be an adorable, very independent cat, and we'll get to that.
And more than that as well. It's more than that as well.
It's way more than that. Way more than that. But that's a big part of it, to get people onto it. Did you, when you were doing your research and you were busking and all that, did you ever experience even like a fraction firsthand when you're in your makeup and you're out there, sort of that perception, like people looking at you differently, treating you differently?
Just not looking at you and feeling completely invisible. You know, there was some tables I went up to in Soho and would, you know, busk a song and say I was looking for money for shelter, and some people would be really kind and give me some money, or, you know, even just that's the thing. I think it's not even just giving someone money. It can just be saying hello or asking if they're okay, and that can really help, I think, as well. But yeah, no, sometimes I remember sitting for an hour outside Leicester Square Tube and just seeing legs go past and no one looking at you. And you just think, God, this is the reality for people, night after night, month on month, year after year, and it can be, it's just a really, really desperate, lonely place to be.
For sure. You mentioned slightly earlier that you got a chance to talk to James. How involved was he in the process? How much did you guys discuss beforehand or even throughout, and what did that kind of look like?
So before I started filming, I asked if James would come over to my house and bring Bob, and he did. And we had an evening, and I spoke to him about various sort of things in the book, and just tried to sort of get an idea of who he was, and kind of, just pick up bits of his life, really. He was really open and really amazing and generous with sharing, you know, some really hard bits of his life, as well as some incredibly positive moments as well, which there are a lot of in this film. But yeah, he was very good at sharing stuff.
As an actor, you're, especially on this stage, we've talked a lot about with a lot of people the challenge of bringing someone to the screen who's currently alive, and like can see that, because you walk that line of between you want to bring their core essence to life, but you don't want to impersonate them. Was there ever a concern of oversaturation of being with James too much, or is it like it all goes in the soup? It's all good stuff.
Well, what was interesting as well is because James was, you know, clearly he was going to come and visit set and have a look, but you know, it wasn't the intention that he was going to be there every day until we realised that the 4 stunt cats that we'd flown over from Vancouver weren't very good with dealing with crowds. So they were brilliant jumping on a bus or doing other stuff, but they couldn't really be on my shoulders whilst I was walking around central London busking with a guitar. And Bob could, obviously, because he's got experience. So then we kind of realised after about a week that we'd have to use the real Bob for that, which then of course meant James would have to bring Bob in as his handler. cat wrangler. And so then every day, James and Bob would be turning up at 5:30 in the morning with us all, and I think that was a bit of a shock to James and Bob, who weren't particularly kind of signed up for that. But they were, James then became this incredibly professional cat handler person who, would be there all the time and just really in the mix. And before every scene, he'd come up, and Bob would walk from James's shoulder onto mine, and then I would go in and we'd do a scene, and after a take, he'd come off my shoulders onto Bob. But just the most sort of surreal, unique experience. Very sort of. Yeah, like art imitating life, imitating. Yeah, it was just really strange.
When you realized James was going to be on set that much, did it get in your head a little bit? Did it affect you? Have to like readjust or flick any other switches, or was it like, let's focus on the work we've done to this point, and let's eyes on the prize? Like, how did that affect you?
I think all of those things really. I mean, I think it sharpens the mind slightly, but I think whenever you're at work, you're constantly asking yourself, have I done all of this? You're constantly wanting to make sure that you've done all your homework and you're just telling it as honestly as you can. But yeah, having him in the room, I suppose it was an extra layer or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I mean, we've become very close friends now, so it's kind of.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was just lovely to have him around, really.
So I know I had read online too that Bob ended up being in the film quite a bit. Like you said, you had 4 stunt cats before.
On the poster.
He's on the poster too. It's fantastic. There's a really great connection between you and Bob. Like, your relationship has a real authenticity to it. Did you grow up around animals or grow up with cats and dogs or anything like that?
I actually had a cat that looked like identical to Bob when I was a kid. Yeah, Ralph, he was called. So till I was about 10 or 11, we had Ralph. And yeah, so I suppose it wasn't my first cat experience.
Did you get a chance to bond with Bob beforehand, or you hang out with
dinner.
Bob? Like,
we went for dinner a lot.
And with Bob?
Yeah, just sort of little walks in the park. No, we'd hang out for the kind of couple of weeks beforehand. At the end of the day, it's a cat. So.
Right. Mostly, I'm sorry, forgive me.
No, but I don't mean to suggest that you're being. No, but I just mean that.
Like, to get Bob comfortable with you. Obviously, you could walk into the room with any cat and you'll probably forge a connection, but I was wondering.
What's cool about Bob, though, is that he's very kind of calm, and he has this amazing, he's quite sort of Buddhist energy, Zen, I always think. And so, whereas a lot of cats are really quite timid at being with people, Bob's been doing book signings for the last few years and has met a lot of fans. So I think he's quite, he's pretty cool with meeting new people. But no, I think me and James and Bob were literally around each other for 7 weeks filming it. So he became very used to, stepping onto my shoulders or giving me a high five, which is incredible. He can do that, but yeah.
You guys keep touch, you and Bob? Does he call? Is he that? Or is he with Hollywood cats now? He's been in a movie.
I know.
He's too
gone
cool.
to Hollywood. They came round to my house the other day. Yeah, we still see each other.
That's awesome, man. Last, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but after talking about Bob's vibe and like how he's sort of Zen-like, was there could you feel a difference in the scene when you were like, oh, I'm definitely working with Bob versus the stunt cat? Like, did he bring something to that moment? Because there's a reason people
he's a
love
charmer.
This cat.
Yeah, no,
he's not just a cat.
He is.
There's something about him, right? Like,
there is something about him. Yeah. Like, as much as I say, like, he's a cat, I mean, he is in the respect that he's independent and he'll just do what he wants. But there is something. If he was here now, he is really quite a special cat. He's got an amazing vibe, and yeah. So he's cool. I mean, the other cats were fantastic as well, and all of the animal trainers that worked with them were amazing as well, and got them doing things which I didn't think Bob would be up for. Jumping on a bus, it's not really his thing. He's just there for the close-ups. So yeah, it was great to be able to use all of them, really.
Very fun, very fun. You mentioned that you were playing all the music for the film, and I want to talk about that too because it's really cool. I think that it keeps adding. There's all these different things that sort of build to make this like such a great piece. And you playing all the music, how did that come about? Was that something they were looking for when you got the script, or were you like, hey, I could play all this? Like,
no, they always knew they'd have to have the person playing James to be busking, and it's all in the film. It's all live kind of performances in it. The guy who wrote all the songs, Charlie Fink, from a band called Noah and the Whale. I don't know if you've heard of them. The brilliant British band that sort of broke up a couple of years ago. But he wrote sort of 6 original songs for it, which I just it was great. I really liked him already as a sort of musician, so it was really fun to be able to work with him and try not to murder his really nicely written songs.
No, they're fantastic. We were playing a couple of them just before we got started, so the crowd got a chance to hear them. But they're really great songs, and you do a fantastic job. So congrats on that. The director of the film, Roger Spottiswoode, he's been in the game for a while, 30 plus years, right? I mean, we're talking Tomorrow Never Dies and the band Played On, Turner and Hooch. Working with a guy like that who's been doing this for so long, what kind of air is there on set? What was it like working with him?
Well, I mean, Roger, he has this sort of really lovely kind of childlike, playful quality to him, you know, and which you might not expect for someone who, as you say, has been doing it for so long. And you know, but he was the person who found it the funniest to do a sort of. We had this thing called Bob Cam, which was a little camera which had little ears on top of it, and it was basically Bob's POV. So in the film, sometimes you cut to Bob looking up at me, and we've shot this with a little camera. And Roger just found it hilarious to just we'd do every scene basically from Bob's point of view. After doing all the other angles, we'd always do that. And I think they were Roger's favourite takes, was just watching the POV of a cat. And the guy who was operating the camera was also called Bob, which was very confusing.
That was part of the interview process.
Yeah, you've got a job. So it was, and you know, I mean, I think Roger's got a really amazing sense of kind of balancing the different aspects of the film. So it feels like, you know, throughout the film, he's trying to tread this fine line, and it is quite a hard line to tread between, you know, showing the kind of raw desperation of someone living on the streets and being a recovering addict, but then also to show the love and the joy that these two, a cat and a man, find for each other. And I think he does that really well. I think he had a really good sense of how to create a film that people could watch and learn from and have their eyes open to some really dark and important issues, but also find it enjoyable and entertaining as well, hopefully.
For sure, yeah, you can tell it was done by somebody who knows what they're doing, like with a clear vision and a purpose. Because you're right, it's difficult to balance those things, and he does it very well. I want to go back for a second. Did you say that the Bob POV cam had ears on it?
Well, I mean, we just got a bit of orange tape and made ears after a few days. We got bored. Yeah.
That's pretty. There's also, I believe, there's one moment where from Bob POV, he does a high five, and you see his little paw come up as well. I feel like I saw that.
Yeah. Do you know how we did that though?
No.
That was my idea actually. I think I'm glad for you brought that up.
Yeah.
But no, I remember we how did we do that? The camera was there, and I think it was just going to be Bob's POV, and then I saw that we had, because when we were lining up, when we were setting up shots, we wouldn't get Bob to sit on my shoulders because, you know, he's a star and he can't sit around for that long. So we'd have a little ginger stuffed cat, no joke, and he would just put that on my shoulder just so we could sort of like line up the shot and stuff. And Bob would come out of his trailer when we were all good and ready. And I remember
sunglasses off.
Yeah, exactly. Rolled up with his green juice. But no, Bob the cameraman was there with Bob POV camera, and I suddenly spotted stuffed Bob over there. And I thought, well, if Bob's here, I just held the little paw like that, so I high-fived the paw myself, and everyone thought it was hilarious. And then I never expected it to make it in. I was
in the movie.
I was literally messing around, but yeah.
I would say it's because what Roger does that's fantastic too is he never anthropomorphizes the cat. He doesn't make it like too much of a human. It's not a crazy mystical cat. Like no, Bob is just a cat. That you know, Bob. They both need each other. And there's a very symbiotic relationship there, and it doesn't become too over the top or cheesy. I think the farthest you could even argue that it even touches that line is the little paw thing, and it's delightful when it happens.
And he really does it in real life. This is the thing. Like he does do a high five. So yeah.
We're going to throw it over to audience Q&A in just a second. I can't say enough good things about this movie. It's fantastic. But I did want to ask you one thing. In doing my research for this and getting stuff together, I had stumbled upon that evidently at one point you had, if I'm reading this right, red wine and limoncello with His Royal Badness himself, Prince. And I would be remiss if I did not ask, how did that go, and what is that story? I would love to hear this. So.
I was lucky enough to see him in Toronto like a couple of months before he passed away with a friend who was friends with him, and we went afterwards to meet for a drink afterwards and sat in a booth, and on his rider he had red wine and limoncello. that was it.
What?
So we just had a bit of that.
Yeah, and did you engage in conversation with him at all? Was he a regular dude, or was he Prince?
It was quite loud in there. It was quite hard to kind of. I mean, I was struggling to find a question to ask that would sort of, not be really boring for him, or and not be. I don't know. I thought, where do you play it cool? You can't talk about the weather, but you can't say, how did you write Purple Rain? So
can't open with that.
I don't know. I
I
think I asked him like if he was playing any festivals this summer, and he just looked at me like no. At the time, he was doing a tour with a grand piano where they were literally just, it was, what's it called, a mic and a piano tour. And I think where they would pick whichever massive city venue they wanted to go to next. It was, I don't think he was doing any festivals.
Got it.
Yep. Hello?
There we are.
Yep.
There we are. Fantastic.
Anyway, it was a joy and a pleasure to meet him.
Yeah.
He was a hero of mine. So, he was incredibly lovely. And,
Well, thank you for indulging. As a huge fan, any opportunity I get to be 1 degree away from Prince, I've got to take it. With that, I believe we have some questions in the audience. Let's go ahead and take the first one.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to know, do you consider yourself to be a method actor? And was Bob difficult to work with on set?
Can you repeat the first bit again? Sorry.
Oh, the first question was, do you consider yourself to be a method actor?
Oh.
Method actor. Do you consider yourself?
I don't know. I find it sort of. I mean, you're constantly searching for a method in which to do each job. I think really, it might change. I don't think I stick to a specific thing for each job. It depends how long you've got, what you're doing, and stuff. But I mean, I always try and fill my mind with as much as I can in terms of understanding where that person's come from and what they've done. But I don't really know what a method actor is really, other than it makes me think they've got a method, but I suppose I try to, but I don't really know.
Do you ever do like the Daniel Day-Lewis thing and stay in character for like weeks at a time?
Not really, no. I mean, it ends up kind of bleeding into you a little bit, I think, whilst you're doing something. But I don't know. Yeah, no, it's per job really. They always, my approach kind of varies for each job, I think.
For sure.
But Bob was great to work with. Yeah.
Next question.
Hi there.
Hi.
So does this show London Has Heart, this movie? And how was it for James afterwards? I mean, has it propelled him somewhere good?
I think it does show that London has heart. I'd like to think London has heart. I think there's heart in all of our great cities, as well as like a massive amount of challenges. We have thousands of people homeless each night in London and New York, and so I think a film like this hopefully can maybe, if it makes one person buy a big issue paper or give someone a thanks or a bit of change, then that's really wonderful. James, it has changed his life completely. I mean, he was busking on the street with Bob back in 2010, 11, when someone came up to him and said, "Would you write a book about your story?" And that book then sold 7 million copies around the world, was 75 weeks in the New York Times bestseller list. And him and Bob have been doing book signings ever since. So, it's massively changed his life. And then to have a film made of his life, I mean, I don't know how, it must be so surreal for him to be seeing that go past on the side of buses and on all the billboards in London at the moment. I don't know what that would be like for him. But he seems to be cool, taking it in his stride and enjoying the whole thing. So, yeah. And he's written 6 other books as well afterwards. So it's going well.
There's actually there's a fun little bit of trivia when you watch the movie. Keep a keen eye. I'm not giving anything away, obviously. They do tons of book signings. There's a scene at the book signing, and James is he's one of the people getting his book signed. He's a little cameo.
Makes a little cameo, yeah.
Little cameo in there. I believe we have time for one more question right here in the front.
Hey Luke, thank you for being here. Does your mindset change when you see stray cats now?
When I see stray cats, I would have always been someone who would have fallen into the caring for a stray cat category, I would think. So I would say I would still always be like caring of any stray animal or stray person, not to be just,
Stray in general, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, like I said, I cannot recommend checking this flick out enough, especially this time of year. A street cat named Bob. One more time, make some noise. Thank you so much. Luke Treadaway, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.